Good morning, and welcome to my presentation about stakeholder talking points, Universal Design for Learning. My name is Terisa ODowd, and after taking this EDUCAUSE class on Universal Design, I have learned some pointers that I want to share with you to help you talk to the stakeholders at your university. One of the first things that you may have to do is explain to your stakeholders what UDL is. Universal Design is often abbreviated UDL for Universal Design for Learning. Universal Design is not a program that faculty will implement once and be done, and that's going to be important to make sure your stakeholders know. It is really a framework for designing learning that provides all students with equal opportunities to learn. It's kind of based on three principles, and those principles are going to allow you as an instructor to provide varied and flexible ways for your students to see information represented, to act upon that information, in other words, action and expression, and to engage with what they're learning in a course. So what are some of the universal design strategies that an instructor can put in place in their course or classroom? Well, Universal Design for Learning provides our instructors with varied strategies to help them meet the needs of diverse learners and improve accessibility to learning opportunities and increase student success. So, as I pointed out on the previous slide, it's not something that faculty will do once and be done with. And in fact, one of the things that we learned in our course is you may want to ease into universal design. Focus on kind of that +1 strategy. What can I implement? One different way I can implement engagement. So let's talk about the three principles of universal design. We'll start with looking at representation, which is kind of the middle area of this table that you see on the slide. Representation would mean, as an instructor, I want to offer my information in more than one format. Maybe right now I offer information to my students in a written format that they have to read. How could I +1 that? How could I provide a variety of formats, or at least one other format? Maybe I could provide that written information auditorily. Maybe I could provide that written information using some type of graphical organizer. So that's just giving you an idea of how representation can be implemented using the universal design idea. The next one is action and expression, and that's going to be all the way over on the right of the table that's on the slide. In this way, it would suggest giving your students more than one way to interact with your material and perhaps to show what they've learned. So we already talked about kind of in that representation, representing your information in multiple formats. So now we're taking it to kind of the next level, giving your students more than one way to interact. So maybe they're interacting with that information no longer just in the reading format, but now they're interacting with that information auditorily or maybe through a video. But take that one step further, and how can the student then show what they've learned? So rather than just accepting a written report from the student, what if you did accept that information provided back to you in a graphical format or in a graphical organizer, or maybe you allowed them to create a video to present back what they have learned. So again, you're allowing for multiple ways for the student to express what they have learned. And then the last one that we will talk about is engagement. And that is actually all the way on the left side of the table. So learners being engaged in the learning. And UDL is going to encourage an instructor to look for multiple ways to motivate students. Why are we learning this? That kind of goes back to allowing the student to understand the real purpose of what they're learning, tying it to real world experiences or real world activities, making those students learn, making them become more independent and self-directed learners. Maybe you're asking them about things that they want to learn about. It may be things they want to learn about that focuses on what your curriculum is, but it's still going to allow for more communication between the instructor and the student in how they're going to be engaged and motivated in what they're learning, kind of the why of learning. So we've talked about what UDL is and some of the strategies that an instructor can use with UDL. Now let's talk about some of the benefits of UDL. The main benefit is that Universal Design gives all students an equal opportunity to succeed. It is an approach that has been designed to allow students with that opportunity to increase their access of learning, their participation in the course or classroom, and their progression of the learning. It's going to offer students flexibility, absolutely, with how they engage and maybe how they demonstrate their knowledge, but in doing that, often instructors find that students are more satisfied with the course experience, and they actually pursue additional coursework in that field. Universal Design, another huge benefit is that it removes barriers to instruction so that all students can achieve and succeed at their learning goals. This can be done by planning and developing that course curriculum in a way that will allow for all students to succeed. Kind of before the UDL approach to learning, if you had students in your classroom with disabilities, they would have to seek some type of accommodation, and they may still have to seek an accommodation. But what UDL does is allows the faculty to be more proactive in their approach to instruction so that more students, and hopefully all students, can achieve and access information and materials in the course. It kind of makes those accommodations less necessary. And by taking that proactive approach to the learning and the access of the students, it makes it a little easier on the faculty because now they're kind of retaining that control of their materials. So is UDL just for instructors? Because I've really talked about how UDL can be used in courses and in the classroom, and really the way faculty instructors use Universal Design for Learning. And absolutely it is for faculty and instructors. But Universal Design for Learning is not just for coursework. It is really for all forms of student interaction that take place across a campus. So Universal Design can be applied to other areas. It could be applied in technology, for example, with your information services, your IT department. It can be applied with services that are offered through your library and media services. It's really can be applied and should be applied to all service areas. Obviously, we think of universal design as those curb cuts or sidewalk ramps that are essential for people in wheelchairs. But when we think about even universal design, those curb cuts and those sidewalk ramps, those are used by all people. And that's a common example of how universal design, which may have been initially applied for those people with disabilities, is actually beneficial to someone that has a stroller, or perhaps someone that's moving materials from one place to another on a cart, and they need to use those curb cuts or those ramps. So universal design is really for everyone, so Universal Design for Learning can also be for everyone. It's inclusive design, and it leads to student persistence, retention, and satisfaction. So when we think of it that way, if you're in the registrar's office and it's easier for a student to gain access to your materials so that they can register and become a part of the universal community, then it's more likely that they're going to stay in the university and eventually graduate and retain the knowledge that they have come to the university for. If you are in another office, maybe it might be that you are in the health services office. If students can easily find out when you're open, how to gain access to your services, then it's more likely they're going to use those services. So UDL is really about the entire university. And finally, I want to just talk a little more about how do we talk to all of our stakeholders. So some of the ideas that I gave you in this presentation were ways that you could talk to faculty and instructors, and then some ideas for how you even can approach those services, those departments, those stakeholders on the campus that are outside of the classroom, outside of coursework. So let's talk about using some of the things that are a part of UDL to talk to your stakeholders. First of all, you may want to take the plus one approach. You don't want to overwhelm your stakeholders, so you may want to talk about one thing that you could do. Visit with your registrar's office, visit with some of the different stakeholders that are a part of the community. Apply Universal Design for Learning. Ask them, here's how what is a way that you could apply Universal Design for Learning in your own context, and then maybe give them a suggestion. Have a conversation with your registrar's office. Talk with people in the tutoring center. Talk to the mental health counselors and start thinking about the full student experience and how did they walk through from applying to the university to graduating, and what are all the different departments and services that touch a student throughout that journey. So in higher education, institutions often struggle with how they can become compliant with guidelines for you know, accessible learning. Universal design is one set of ideas that can improve and strengthen the best practices that a university has for access, engagement across multiple departments, across multiple services. And as a kind of an evangelist of universal design, what we want to do is take it one step at a time, do something rather than nothing, and start walking the walk and letting others know what we're doing. In that way, we can kind of create a community of practice, thereby sharing our knowledge with others, allowing others to share their knowledge with others, and building upon those successes throughout our university. So that is my presentation on talking to stakeholders, and I, I have learned a lot in this course, and I hope to take this information now and begin building that community of practice at my own university.